Glasgow set up an All-Euro C quarter-final as they dismantle Leicester. My name is Mark, let's talk rugby. Leicester got off to a flyer in this Sunday win, an early scrum penalty. Very kickable, but they decide they're going to go to the corner. Their maul then makes ground before it goes down, but then Cracknell drives over, gets very low to the ground on the line. Conversions missed 5 points to 0. And that scrum penalty for Leicester was a bit of an aberration because Glasgow for much of the game were absolutely on top in the scrum. Glasgow then win a number of penalties in the Leicester 22, but eventually Leicester forced them back with aggressive defence, and Glasgow work it back into that 22, and they get another penalty for no release close to the line. But Leicester, they got up, they got into position, they scored their points. Glasgow struggling at this point, and it felt like at that point maybe Glasgow were going to get frustrated and Leicester could actually go on to win the game. But Glasgow, they go to the corner again. Leicester get in among them in the maul, make it unplayable. Great defence from them at that point. But the problem is Leicester, all they're doing is defending, and Glasgow are just coming back. They continue to apply pressure, and Van Horfleet goes to the bin for a deliberate knock-on. Hastings kicks that to the corner. They make a mess of the 5 metre line out as the overthrow, but Adam Hastings gets the ball first. He offloads to Venter, who goes over to score, converted for 7 points to 5. So like a complete mistake actually leads to them breaking down that Leicester defence finally. Stafford McDowell then breaks into 22, offloads to Horn, who stopped 5 minutes short of the line by Dan Kelly. Really good defence from him. Glasgow then goes to the corner from a penalty. The line-out works this time, but as Johnny Matthews goes off the back, he runs into his own man. Scrum to Leicester. Glasgow, though, they push Leicester off their own ball in the scrum, and Violanu picks at the back and goes over to score. Conversion makes it 14 points to 5. Leicester then win a penalty on the edge of 22, and strangely they decide that they're going to tap it, which was like, they're not 5 metres out, like they're 25 metres out. And yeah, they tap it. Violano eventually gets over the ball to win a penalty for Glasgow because they're pretty much going nowhere. We then have a Timo check for a high hit on Matthews. It's shoulder to head, but Matthews is falling into the tackle. No foul play, so rugby incident, play on. Glasgow then win another penalty in the 22, and Leicester get a warning just for the number of penalties that they're giving away close to the line. Glasgow then go to the maul, but they're driven over the touchline. Good defence there from Leicester, but again, it's just all defence from them and no attack. Glasgow break into the 22, and Dobie is, looks like he's going into the corner, but then Radwan gets back and forces a mistake in the offload. Leicester soaking up a lot of pressure. Then Jordan gets Glasgow deep into that 22 just before the break. Henderson infringes. He goes to the bin, and Hastings makes it 17 points to 5 from the tee at half time. Into the second half then, Glasgow, they were pretty wasteful in the first half, but they score within a couple of minutes of the restart. Violanu goes off the back of a strong scrum and over to score his second, converted for 24 points to 5. Glasgow then to go up the line from a penalty, spread it into 22 from the line out. Stain goes close, then he comes back and they bring it back inside, and Hastings is over. He converts his own try for 31 points to 5, and that should be them into the quarter final now. Rowe then goes through a gap, and over halfway he puts Horn in under the post, converted for 38 points to 5. Horn stretching his record as the leading try scorer of all time for Glasgow. Leicester then finally produce something in the second half. They win a penalty close to the line, is tapped. They move it infield, and then Kata comes on a strong line, picks a nice angle, and goes over to score, converted for 38 points to 12. Freddie Stewart then busts through a tackle into the 22. Then he gives a pass to Dan Kelly, but he can't hold it. Should have held it. Should have been a try. And maybe, still a long way back, but maybe Leicester could have built some momentum on the back of that. But yeah, really butchered the try there. Warriors then attacking into 22, but as they look to go wide, it's Andre Pollard intercepts, sprints away. He then kind of pulls up and he kicks crossfield. I think they were saying like he needed like treatment for his hamstring or something, but kicks crossfield, and Glasgow managed to prevent the try. It looked like, for all the world, there was a certain try. He was in behind, miles away, like miles ahead of any defender. But then, whatever happened to him, I don't know, because he played on after that. But from here, then Glasgow do manage to prevent it to try, but they concede a penalty. Leicester tap it, and then Liebenberg goes over from close range, converted for 38 points to 19. But Glasgow, they're not done scoring themselves. They win a scrum penalty, kick to the corner. Leicester in at the side of the maul, so another penalty back to the corner. The maul then, as they set it up from this one, it's going forward, but they kind of leave the ball carrier behind. He passes to Venter, who crashes over in the corner. Conversions missed, 43 points to 19. We then have a Timo check as Glasgow burst up the middle. The ball kind of comes off a Glasgow knee and it's going into behind into the goal area, and Stafford McDowell, he wins the race there, but he grounds the ball on the dead ball line. So after Timo check, it's no try, even though the crowd were whistling for it, but you can see very clearly, like, it wasn't even close. It was definitely grounded on the dead ball line. Last minute of the game then, and Leicester looking to get a final consolation score. They knock it on close to the line. Then Matt Fagerson picks the ball out of the ruck and kicks it dead, thinking it's time up. One of his mates obviously told him that it was time up. Just as, I don't know if it was a joke or something. But then we come back for the scrum. They do get it out of the scrum, but this time off the field, and it is time up. That's full time, 43 points to 19, and Glasgow go into the quarterfinal where they play Leinster next week in Dublin. Okay, so let's have a look at the stats, and then we'll talk about the two teams. So let me pull them up on the official site here. Okay, so first of all, tries, 6 tries to 3, but never really close. Even in the first half, where obviously Leicester score first, it felt like, after that, it was all Glasgow, and it was just a case of when were Glasgow going to start taking their opportunities. In terms then of attack, so 648 meters made by Glasgow, just 256 for Leicester, 185 carries to 81. So you're talking about, for Glasgow, that is about 3.5 meters, I think, per carry. And then for Leicester, they're getting around the same, like about just over 3 meters actually for them, but just not enough carries overall, and not enough ball for them, and too much time spent in their own 22. Clean breaks then, 20 for Glasgow to just 3 for Leicester. So again, who was on top. Defenders beaten 42 to 12. So 2-1 pretty much conversion rate for Glasgow. Defenders beaten into clean breaks. And then 4-1 for Leicester. Offloads then 13-2. Some of Glasgow's offloads, kept moves going, led to tries. Passes then 213 to 85. Possession 63% to 37, and the same for territory as well. Yeah, for as it shows there for the most part, Glasgow had the ball and Glasgow were in the Leicester half. Onto the defence then, tackles made 112 to 213, so pretty much almost double. 86% for Glasgow. That's a good defensive performance from them. They're going to need that against Leinster next week as well. 78% for Leicester. Sorry, excuse me, but my voice is gone. I've made 4 of these videos now today, but 78% for Leicester. Certainly not the worst we've seen this weekend. We've seen teams down like 70%, but certainly not brilliant from them either. Turnovers 1 then 9 for Glasgow, 12 for Leicester. Those the bulk of those 12 came in that period where Glasgow were finding it so difficult to actually convert their pressure into points. Lineouts 1 then 17 to 9. 94% in the lineup for Glasgow, 90% for Leicester. Then scrums 8, 1 for Glasgow, 5 for Leicester, and it just shows the dominance in the scrum. 100% for Glasgow and just 63% for Leicester. On to kicking then, kicks from the hand 14 to 15, so both teams running the ball. Kick meters 314 for Glasgow to 471 for Leicester, but if the game had been tighter, maybe that would have mattered for them, but not really. 2 kicks retained each. Onto the breakdown then. Rucks won 117 to 65. 1 ruck lost by Glasgow. 98% ruck success for them and 96 for Leicester. Then maul totals 11 to 3. I thought Leicester, for the most part, defended the maul well, even though they did concede a maul try. But maul success, 73% for Glasgow, was down on what you normally expect from them because their maul is so good and so well drilled. But just 33% for Leicester. 8 meters gained by Glasgow in the maul and just 1 for Leicester. Onto discipline then. Penalties conceded 7 for Glasgow and 15 for Leicester. Leicester at one point, they were heading for almost 20 penalties conceded because they were at like 12 or 13 with a lot of the second half left to go. But then, got a little bit, not really a rally, but, they at least lifted the pressure a little bit. 2 yellow cards for them though. And among other things, contributed to, a very lackluster performance from them and a heavy defeat. Okay, so let's talk about the team. So let's start with Leicester. Great start from them, but then absolutely nothing offered for the rest of the first half. Pretty much just defense. Defense was decent, and maybe if they'd held Glasgow out in that initial period where Glasgow were like 10 or so minutes, close to the line, not getting over, not scoring. If they'd done that, if they'd held them out, and then they'd gone up the field and maybe even scored a penalty or something, suddenly the whole complexion of the game changes. But the fact that they were keeping them out, then they were clearing the ball, and it was only going out to 22. We're just beyond the 22, and Glasgow were coming back. You knew eventually Glasgow were going to get over. They're just too good of a team not to. And Leicester just offering nothing in attack. Into the second half then, Glasgow did start taking their points, and it was only when the game was over then that Leicester got in for their couple of tries in the second half. So no real threat of a comeback. Although, again, if Dan Kelly had held that ball from Stewart, maybe it would have made Glasgow a little bit nervous, but even at that point, it still would have been double scores, 38 to 19. So it's not like they were like charging back within a couple of points of them or something like that. Not brilliant from them. They finished the pool stages, by conceding 80 points to Toulouse, and they conceded 43 here, and I think average this year that they conceded was something like 47 points. So this is actually an improvement from them. But that, the Toulouse scoreline obviously blew it out a little bit, but that was over 4 games. So the average with 80 points would have been 40. So they conceded another 80 odd points, 90 points probably, over the other 3 games as well. So not brilliant from them this year. And, it's one of these ones, I think, with the format as it is. There are teams who, probably would have been better if they'd gone out at the pool stages, if we had just straight into quarterfinals, because the gap between them was a bit too big tonight. But you look at the La Rochelle Munster game from earlier today, and you can see what's possible if a team does turn up and perform. And Leicester started well, just didn't finish. Well, they started the first 2 minutes were brilliant, and then the rest of the 78 minutes not so good. On to Glasgow then. They conceded early, but they kept that pressure on, kept it on. No real panic from them. They weren't deciding, okay, we'll just take 3 points and let them come back upfield. They were basically, very stubborn, decided we're definitely going to get over for tries. They got over for a couple of tries in the first half, but found it very hard to convert that pressure into points. And then the second half, so much easier for them. Once the game was over, then they were finding space everywhere. And the handling for, between backs and forwards as well is so good on that team that once they get into broken field, it's so hard to stop them. And they were just running in tries for fun at one stage as well. So, brilliant performance from them. The scrum was so good. That's going to be a real weapon, I think, for them against Leinster, who, Leinster scrum can be, hit and miss, and if they get on top of that, plus, they've got a really good line out. The maul is very good as well. So they've got lots of things going for them going in to that game in Dublin. Obviously they're going to be the underdogs, given that, Leinster won the top seeds, they're away from home, etc. But they've beaten Leinster in Dublin before. They beat them last year in the URC, on their way to claiming the URC titles as well. So they know how to do it. They have the past experience of winning in Dublin against Leinster. So I don't think they'll have as much fear as maybe a Leicester would have going to Dublin, given what's happened to them against Leinster, in knockout, the knockout stages of this competition in recent years. But it's still going to be a tough ask for them. If they're going to do it, the one thing they need to improve on is that early period that we saw in this game where they couldn't get over to score points. If that happens against Leinster, that could be a very different outcome for them. So definitely going to have to be clinical early on, get their scores on the board in that one. But for now, well done to them. It's great to see. We've now had 3 URC teams through to the quarterfinals, and it's brilliant to see, because for too long, it's basically just been Leinster going through the knockout stages, getting to semi-finals or finals or wherever. We want to see more URC teams getting further in the competition. And, I talked about with Glasgow was that brilliant that they won the URC last year, but they needed to step up in Europe. I think this performance here is that step up that they've needed. But now let's see, can they go over or come over to Ireland and upset the apple cart by knocking out Leinster. So that's it from me. Let me know what you think down in the comments.